Hi everyone, my name is Natalia and I am your host. I hope you will enjoy this episode. Today I had this incredible chat with Tanya, who is an artist and also environmentalist. So what you will hear in just a moment is about her performing art and installations captured by beautiful photographs. She wants to spread awareness about environmental issue in a very unique way, using her art and her experience as an artist, and also by her personal life. And she has very interesting way to do so to grab more attention and to be more visible. So if you want to know her tricks, how to get more audience and talk about very important yet sometimes hard subjects, stay with us. So one more thing, if you are listening to this podcast, then you are listening to the full version, which is 45 minutes long, and if you are watching it on YouTube, then it's the shorter version where I try to capture the most important moments. Yet, of course, if you are on YouTube and you want to know more about Tanya, she's super interesting person and artist. Just check out the podcast. And if you don't have much time, YouTube is the perfect place to be. So thank you so much, and I hope you will enjoy this episode. Hi Tanya, thank you so much for your time. How are you today?
Hello, thanks so much for having me. I'm fantastic, thank you.
It's such a pleasure to talk with an artist who is also engaged in something extremely important. You are involved in climate change, eco missions, and as we know, China is one of the biggest distributor of pollution. So being in Hong Kong, I think it's very important subject for many people. So could you tell us a bit more about your background?
Let's see. I was born in Portugal, and
born in Portugal.
Yeah. So it's a very big cut and paste story to recall where I've been. So I was born in Portugal, South African parents, grew up in South America and in Europe and a number of places. So I've always been very fortunate to see a lot of different cultures and to be experienced and exposed from a very early age. So in some ways, it's almost all I know. And other ways, it is something that's been a huge source of character building. So I was born in Portugal, grew up in a number of different countries, was living in the UK, which is one of the places I've lived the longest. So between London and Hong Kong, these are the places I've lived the longest. And I was studying art in London now this sounds like the opening to a joke. I went into a pub and I walked out with a project, and I really did. So I was in a pub in London with some friends on a Sunday afternoon and started chatting to the table next door. This man started telling us the story of his life. He'd lost his daughter, and I was very moved by this. And he said, but I've set up foundations in her name in a number of different countries, including Cambodia and Bangladesh. And I said, you should make a documentary about that. And he said, okay, are you interested? And I thought he was joking. And I said, yeah, of course. And then the next morning he phoned me and said, what's the budget? And I thought, oh, goodness, he's serious. So put together a budget, and then before I knew it, I was making a documentary in Phnom Penh for 2 weeks during the hottest time of the year. And went with my best friend who was a camera woman, and together we'd never been to Asia. She's Polish. And so there we were, just in one of the poorest parts of Asia, hottest time of the year, in the middle of nowhere, and just kind of going, this is amazing. And 2 weeks, we made the documentary, went back to London, had a screening, and basically told everyone, thanks for coming, we've just bought one-way tickets to Cambodia, see ya.
Wow. And so Cambodia, and then why Hong Kong? Like, what was the next step?
So I was living in Cambodia, and in the meantime, my sister and her husband and children moved from London to Hong Kong, unbeknownst to me until they arrived. And so then my life started changing a lot. I was bouncing between Phnom Penh and Hong Kong, and more extremes culturally and financially, and you cannot imagine. But I really enjoyed the contrast between extreme, like $1 a day living for the populations, and then here is like shiny, sexy buildings, financial hub, and glossy, and so that every single time one of them became too much, I had the opportunity to bounce back to the other one. So that was a really lovely dynamic. And I did that for a number of years. So yeah, I started becoming very familiar with Hong Kong without actually properly living here, but really living a family life in many ways. I'd spend maybe 2 or 3 months at a time.
Amazing, amazing, amazing. And I just want to also touch base about something very unique. So you mentioned before the interview that every year you are visiting this very unique festival on the middle of the desert called Burning Man. Could you tell us why it's so special for you?
Yeah, it took me a while to figure out what it was about Burning Man. I mean, there are a million Burning Mans, and everybody will tell you a million different stories, and they're all true. And that's the amazing thing. I have been going for a number of years, and I guess everybody goes for their own reasons, but mine really struck and hit home last year. I was there, and I was in the middle of the middle of the event, middle of the week. Nothing particularly big was happening, but I stopped for a minute and thought, what is it about this place that makes it so life-changing? What is the secret sauce to Burning Man? And I stopped and I looked around, and 75,000 people in the middle of nowhere really kind of creates a certain dynamic. And as I was looking around, I would see people laughing, people crying, people just sitting quietly, people meditating, people dancing, people partying. You name it, everybody was doing something. But the difference was between that and the rest of the world was that everybody looked very engaged. They were very on, they were very switched, they were very plugged in whatever stage of the emotions or actions they were in. And this led me to think, what is it about this place? Because despite popular belief, not everyone is on drugs and not everyone's there for the orgies. People go, that happens and that's absolutely fine, but there are a lot of different reasons to go. And what I came away thinking was that the reason Burning Man invites so much creativity is because everyone's encouraged and invited to be expressive. So radical self-expression is one of the principles. It's based on 10 principles. And they really honor that. So whatever it is that you do in the real world or that place, you're encouraged there to be completely yourself. So if your sexual preferences are secret to the rest of the world, there they can be expressed. If you have body issues or if you just want to be naked all day long, be naked. And nobody really cares. It's really not a big deal. And consequently, you find people feeling fully engaged in who they are. And I think that's my research so far. That's my takeaway about why it's such a special place.
Amazing. And for you personally, I remember that you mentioned to me that something very personal happened there. So if you want to share with us what it was.
What was it? I don't know. I can't remember now.
You got married.
Oh yeah. Yes.
During the festival.
We did. My husband and I. We had planned this quite spontaneously, and it felt very natural because our camp in Burning Man is we camp with the same people every year, and we have this family dynamic whereby we only see them there, and we really coexist intensely 24 hours a day. We share chores, kitchens, lives, stories, logistics, building, so it's very intense, but it's very special. So we felt that it would be really wonderful to share this experience with them. So we picked a piece of art in the middle of a piece of art that resonated with us that particular year. You can never really tell what's going to be out there. But this piece of art was a big metal installation of the word magic. And we gathered there on a Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. because we knew we weren't going to get a lot of people. But then again, you'll always have strangers showing up. We thought, how cool would it be to have like naked strangers in your wedding photos? We're like, yeah, that sounds amazing. So 9 a.m., one of our camp members led the ceremony. So she said some words, and people had collected vials of sand and dust and shared stories, and it was a Tuesday, and in Burning Man, Tuesdays are tutu Tuesdays, so everybody's wearing tutus, apart from me, I was wearing like a wedding dress, but so a lot of our photos have tutus in it, and strangers, and it was, as we were standing around this piece of art, the artist came up to us, she happened to be there by chance, and she said, are you getting married? I was like, yeah, she's like, oh, here, have some pieces of the art, and she had these metal birds that had formed the structure that she had stamped out. So she gave us these birds. Aww. And those are the kind of things that just randomly happen there all the time. Then somebody was walking past and filming it, and he said, oh, I happen to be making a documentary and you're in it, and I'll send you the clips.
Oh, that's so nice.
I don't know how many places around the world that ceremony is involved in, but it's something that makes me laugh, and I like laughing, so it's good.
That's great. We have a bit limited time. I would like to start to talk about your your projects, very important projects. Could you tell us what you are doing now in Hong Kong?
I've really been looking at the space of eco-anxiety, and eco-anxiety is the extreme chronic concern around environmental collapse. So it looks very different for different people. And when I kind of discovered it, nobody was talking about it, and I didn't really understand what was going on with me. But as I researched, I understood that it's a thing and a lot of people experience it. And that got me interested in the conversation of mental health and environment and communicating this to other people. But in 2017, just to backtrack a bit, I was invited to be part of a festival called Green is the New Black in Hong Kong. So it's a festival celebrating consciousness around talks, workshops, there's a marketplace. And I was invited to give a talk and to create art. And I was really drawn to the idea of waste, but in a different way. I didn't want to just make kind of trash art around like building more naive style art. I wanted to make something a little bit more impactful, I suppose. But I also had very limited time, and the people I was going to work with weren't available. So I was faced between either I don't do this at all because my artistic integrity, blah, 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 or I just get on with it and see what happens. And I decided to get on with it and see what happens. And basically just started rolling cling film from my local supermarket. Like a dung beetle, I was rolling this ball of cling film to the point where it was 13 kilos. And I had to stop there because I couldn't roll it out my doorway and I couldn't roll it into the elevator, but I could have gone a lot bigger. And this was one person collecting cling film from my local supermarket over 1 week. And that kind of got me thinking, you know, we talk about plastic bags, we talk about straws, but what about all the other plastic that we don't really look at, and how pervasive it is and how invisible and silent it is? And that kind of made me want to look at cling film and say, okay, cling film, it's your time on the spotlight now. Here you go. And so I started rolling this piece of plastic around the streets of Hong Kong, and people really stared because it was weird and because it was like, what are you doing?
How big it was?
So I called him Paul the plastic ball.
And so it's like a one meter by 1 meter kind of.
Yeah.
Wow.
And he was heavy. I mean, thinking back, I could have just made him hollow, but I was trying to make a point around the weight, around the volume, around the time frame. So I was dragging him down the streets of Hong Kong. So and I was dragging him because I needed to get him from my flat to the space. But while we were doing this, Alex Macro, the photographer who I now work with on a more firm partnership, he was documenting me doing this, and we're like, but this is kind of part of the experience because it's engaging people in the public who are pointing and staring and weirded out and confused, and it was really fun because it was such a unexpected but powerful experience, and the visuals became part of the ongoing story, and it made me think a little bit bigger about how to create visuals and art that have an impact or that resonate with people, that are not just sitting in galleries, that are not just beautiful or something, but actually very tangible.
They have a meaning, right? So the mission. So do you think actually the art is the most important, or the idea is the most important for you?
What was more important, the art or the message?
The message, yeah. If the mission is the most important,
That's a good question, and I'm not sure. I think I'm starting to explore this in greater depth and looking at being invited to create public arts in stationary places for the public. And so that's making me wonder, what is the most important thing here? Is it to make something cute that people are going to, you know, different audiences need different things, and different cultures resonate with different things and are more familiar with different styles. So it's an ongoing dialogue. For example, I've got a project coming up in Sai Kung in December, and it's a public space art, and it's around waste and plastic. And of course, being in a public space, you've got all the limitations and health and safety and all this, which forces you into a more narrow spot, which is fine. That's the nature of the dynamic. But it also makes me think, then, am I making something that's going to resonate with people who don't necessarily care about the environment, who don't necessarily care about art? And how? So I don't have an answer to that yet. And I think.
And could you describe a bit more about what you are doing with Alex Macro right now? Because you've been doing the projects like already for a few years, right?
Yeah, so we started in 2017 with that initial project, and then it became, the reason Alex and I resonate so well is because we both come from art backgrounds, and we lived in London, and we have this kind of gung-ho attitude towards creating, and this very much spontaneous engaged feeling, and we both feel the same way about it. So when we come together about something, it's just this very easy dynamic of bouncing ideas, and you don't have to explain. It's like, I want to do something really bonkers. Okay, great. What does it look like? And how? There's no kind of like, but, if, when, how. It's like, all right, how do we do this? So that works really well because it feels like we don't have to start from zero every time. We just get into it and then take it further. So we've been working mainly on photographic projects. And a lot of it's been around fashion, strangely enough. Alex's background is fashion photography and advertising, so it's a natural dynamic for him. I started getting into the fashion conversation by chance. I was invited to be part of a group on sustainable fashion 2.5 years ago. And within 20 minutes of that conversation, it started being about sustainability. So we created Circular Community Hong Kong. And through that, I started engaging more in the local community, and I went to a podcast recording by Christina Dean from Redress, where she was talking about how she, for 1 year, only got clothing out of a dumpster, and was wearing this to corporate meetings, and and she wasn't even like always washing it. And there's this really amazingly beautiful, stylish, intelligent, well-respected woman in a very sanitized city such as Hong Kong, where people are total germaphobes, going on about how she would just, dig things out from the dumpster and wear them. And I was like, that sounds amazing. And I thought, and I said then and there, that was the 10th of May, 2017, I said, I'm for 1 year not going to buy anything new, just thinking, let's see what happens. And
what date you started?
10th of May, 2017.
Oh, wow. Wow.
So that was meant to be for 1 year, and I kind of spoke a little bit about it on social media, not thinking it's a big deal, because it's not. It's not like I'm doing anything groundbreaking, but the responses were interesting. And the first kind of questions were, what about your knickers? And I was like, okay, that's a good question, but how funny talking in a social platform about your undergarments. But anyway, the questions started becoming more interesting, from people saying, oh, but that's easy, to others going, how will you survive? And so the ups and the downs and the ins and the outs, irrespective of that, it's been 2.5 years and I haven't bought new clothes. And
crazy.
Yeah, and it's been absolutely life-changing for so many unexpected reasons, sociologically, psychologically, philosophically, financially, time-wise, practically.
Absolutely.
So in every unexpected aspect, it's been, and it's opened up lovely opportunities to have conversations about fashion, because when I do wear things and people comment on it, then it's like 2 minutes talking about that dress, trousers, whatever, and then the rest of it talking about secondhand fashion, waste, pollution, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So it's a nice entry point. And I think fashion, like food, we all have clothing in our wardrobes and we all have food on our plates. Consequently, we're all part of that conversation around sustainability. It's no longer the reserve of oil barons and things that happen behind corporate doors. It's every industry all the time, and it's a melting pot. So we're all engaged in it. And the fact that the Queen of England is talking about plastic straws kind of tells you that we've really reached a tipping point.
By the way, beautiful top, I have to say.
Now, disclaimer, it's sequins, consequently it's plastic, which is super unsustainable, and I know people will have something to say about that, but this was given to me by my sister, who often gives me her stuff that she no longer wears. So it's a circular system whereby I just take it on and give it a new life. And then when I've had enough of it, or when it looks better on somebody else, they're welcome to take it as well. And so on it goes, because the idea is just basically to keep things in a loop and keep it in use.
And so talking about the projects, how you are proceeding it? Like, are you, because Alex, it's a photographer. You are behind the idea itself, from what I understand. Could you tell us a bit more?
Yeah, we bounce off very nicely. So Alex is the photographer, and I come up with the sets, the wardrobes, the props, the concept. But we are constantly in dialogue. So I wouldn't say it's my vision or it's his vision. We make the stuff we make because we're making it together. Like, his career as a photographer is very established and very successful, and he does what he does, and there's no taking away from that. And the stuff that I've been doing is a little bit more eclectic and conceptual. But when the two come together, we bring this kind of dynamic to photography. So I would say that our medium is perhaps performance art, photography, installation, because it is about, I'm not selling anything. I'm not a model. I'm not there to promote a product. I am there to perform a situation rather, and I use props at my availability to make people ask questions. So I make clothing out of packaging, and I wear maybe stuff like this, But it's to send a message. People, it would be helpful to move away from that idea that secondhand is dirty, or for hippies, or because you're poor, or because. So let's reframe things, and let's re-question things, and let's put things in familiar contexts. So it looks very glamorous, but then you look a little bit closer, and my skirt's made out of fruit packaging socks, or my dress is made out of TV packaging. And that's, you know, we live in such a visual world where we're so inundated with images. If you go online, you want beautiful images, because you can scroll for 7 weeks and you will have endless, bottomless supplies of beautiful images. So as a culture, we're almost wired for it now. We expect it. So to play a little bit around that of, yes, there's an interesting image, it's punchy, it's aesthetically pleasing, but for lots of different reasons. So we work with different organizations. There's an organization called the Adventure Cleanup, where they basically took Hong Kong Island and challenged 6 teams over 1 month to go to the very hard to reach areas, so the very rocky, secluded beaches, and to not only clean up the trash, but to educate local communities, and there was a prize at the end. So we worked with one of the teams, and went to a very remote beach and photographed it before they cleaned up, so the day before. So it was a very small beach, and it was just knee-high in plastic, fridges, insane.
Crazy.
So we didn't even have to, I had no job, no work there with props, because it was just put me here, climbing out of a fridge, and here we go. So Alex does his magic with the lights, and I look at the costumes and the styling, and we work together about the angles and the light and what's going to work better. And off we go. And, you know, we're 2 people, so it's not like we've got this massive production and budget and lights and trucks and fans and ball gowns. We don't. It's basically me and my secondhand clothing that we haul around and alleys in Hong Kong and streets and buildings, and kind of do things on the run because we've got to move fast. So it's very, I think the energy comes out of the spontaneity and the kind of opportunities, and also framing Hong Kong in a very different way. Nobody expects somebody to be dragging a bag of plastic around the streets and being photographed doing it, and then having opportunities to speak about it in magazines, you know, and that has happened. And that to me was a real indication of there's an opportunity to start this dialogue in a different way.
Yeah. I actually remember my first experience in secondhand shop, and that was in Poland, and it's very related actually to fashion. So it's I start to go to secondhand shops because you can find some very unique clothing which are great for photo shoots. And as I love fashion photography, so I was buying the weirdest, the most wow thing, which you don't want to go maybe on the street, but for photo shoots, for fashion shoots, where you want to do something cool and strange, this is perfect.
Absolutely.
So actually, in point of art, I think this kind of shops can really inspire you and get some new ideas. And also you can find, I remember I found some also good brands such as Prada or Dolce & Gabbana between the cheapest thing ever. And this is really exciting. It's oh my God, I found this piece. And it's just so awesome. So I think for people who wants to also try do some fashion photography, it's amazing place to start.
Absolutely.
to do the styling.
And just to get ideas, like you say, just inspiration. It's such a visual feast that you can just pick up ideas of how things are bunched together or unexpected things. And it's not about necessarily buying it. It's just about being exposed to it and to see it, and to let your mind keep on staying open and engaged. And it's a very rewarding experience. And when you do find that one piece that's a gem, it's so rewarding because you really kind of did the work for it. And I think that's kind of what fashion should be. It should be joy, and it should be pleasure, and it shouldn't just be fast food.
Definitely. Right. So some supermarkets are they just putting plastic absolutely everywhere. And I actually heard that mission started when you saw, I think it was a coconut, which was in plastic, and it's kind of horrible to see such a thing. So if you can tell us a bit more about where you are shopping right now.
So I really follow a plant-based diet, and that kind of excludes a lot of big places. But I think that for grocery shopping, Live Zero, there's Slow Wood, there is Just Green, there's The Shop, and then iHerb, which is packaging. But if you want plant-based substitutes for things such as powders and vegan options, that's a really nice way to do it. So for real zero waste packaging, Live Zero. and slow wood.
And for people who would like to join you in the venture, I know that you have also, you're one of the co-founder of a community. Could you tell us a bit more about this?
So Circular Community Hong Kong was started 2.5 years ago, and the original idea was to educate and inspire the public around circular living. Circular living being this idea that there is cross-collaboration between different industries to minimize waste and to rethink production models of this, extract, produce, manufacture, throw away, repeat, and to kind of move between keeping things in the loop, and when they do leave the loop, how do they integrate into the natural world with the minimum harm. So that is, we started off being a very small group, and initially it was a creative group because they were fashion designers. I have no idea why I was there, but I was, and then it quickly turned into a conversation about circularity, and then a lot of different industries joined. So now today we're over 200 people, and we're corporate, we're grassroots, we're small, we're NGO, we're educational, we're creatives, so it's a really great dynamic, and it's a great community of very supportive information sharing, knowledge sharing, resource sharing. So there's real value in that because no one person has a particular agenda. It's very open, and I think that when it comes to addressing the challenges we have, collaboration is the only way ahead, and so therefore this comes from a natural, organic space.
I'm so happy to see so many new ideas, organization, communities, which share this mission of tackle some small problems, right, and big problems as well, of course. So it's so great that you are here in Hong Kong, and to see how the city changing and transforming into being more eco-friendly in the future. Well, hopefully we'll go to the beach and we not have this kind of surprise as you. Full of trash and no place to sit because literally like there is a fridge and you don't have place for your towels. So which is the situation right now, which is quite sad. And also, of course, the changing, the transformation is always a bit more expensive, but we'll pay much bigger price if we will not do it at all now, and we'll just wait, because then we'll not have choice. So yeah, it's good to do it today, not tomorrow, and as you mentioned, like put it on our children. So yeah, and a lot of people are actually listening to the podcast to kind of also get inspired how to start a project, how to get the frame. So if you can tell us a bit more about this specific time frames or schedule which you have with Alex, like how you are starting from the idea to the end of the project, so to printing the artworks.
Really fast.
Really fast?
Yeah, it's really fast. Depending on if there's an event or an exhibition, or just, we do work fast, just that's the nature of it. For people wanting to get involved, I would say, don't be afraid to be as weird about things as, there's so many options out there. And if you are really concerned about pink bottle caps on soda bottles, it's okay. There's a group out there that will care about that as well. So don't feel like you have to go really big and epic and corporate and have some kind of engineering background. You don't. You just need to be open enough to say what it is that you care about, and the community will come. And that's something I've learned over the last 2 years. And there's more support and more connection than there ever has been before. And I guarantee you that whatever you're thinking, something out there exists. And so you can engage with that financially, practically, idea-wise. And if it doesn't exist, put it out there and you will make it exist. So there's huge opportunities for collaborations and for getting resources and the support you need. So be vocal. And I don't mean be aggressive or loud or angry or an activist. It doesn't need to be any of that. Just be vocal and say what you care about, what you're interested in, and the rest will come. And Circular Community Hong Kong has a lot of resources, so we are open and it's easy to join us. And through that, you might find your thing. And even if you're just curious, you might find out that you really care about food composting, or you really care about upcycling fashion or plastic waste. There's something out there. So even if you're just curious, join an organization. It can be any organization online. There are a lot of resources as well. But you will be amazed how simply by getting active and sometimes getting out of our heads and overthinking the scenarios and the news headlines and the stuff that we're bombarded with, if we move into a place of action, how that creates other opportunities for other people as well. And I've learned that just by talking about secondhand fashion, how many other people have felt more interested and curious and knowledgeable and have fun with it as well.
So last but not least, it's very important where your fans can find you offline and online.
Sure. So I'm on Instagram and I'm building a website as we speak. I don't have any upcoming talks yet, but where are we? We're in September, October. I will keep you posted and I'll share links with you. By all means, get in touch with me through my Instagram, and I'm happy to connect people and to direct them and to just have a chat about anything that they're thinking, because like I said, this is a wonderful time in many ways to be concerned about these things, because never before have we had more connection and resources and care. So I see it as an opportunity to think differently, and that's never a bad thing.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much, Tanya. It was such a pleasure to chat with you, and I look forward to your new projects. And as I mentioned, I will make sure that all the links are in the show notes. So if you want to get all the information we mentioned about, just go to the show notes and it should be all there. Thank you so much for your time. And see you soon.
Yes, thanks so much. I really enjoyed it and it's been a pleasure, and I'm so happy and excited to be able to connect with different communities.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. I had such a pleasure to chat with Tanya. I hope you like it. Please don't hesitate to email me if you have any questions. I really enjoyed to chat with you guys, so don't hesitate to send me an email, which you can find below as well. If you like the video, please thumbs up, or if you want to hear more of this kind of content, please subscribe to my channel, subscribe to the podcast, and talk to you soon. Bye.